Hello, I'm Kathy Wilson, and this is my son Justin. And we just felt the need to want to share some experiences that we've had and encourage others to, help get through some interesting times in our lives. And for me, I guess one of the biggest ones has been struggling with anxiety or stress for years and feeling like no matter what I try or do, nothing changes. It's still the same situations over and over, same anxiety, same struggles, and not getting any easier, and or even getting worse to the point where sometimes I can't even do the most basic of things of just being able to eat or sleep properly. I can't even, like you can't even digest your food, or you can't get any sleep because your mind or your body's in knots. And so I felt like, why does this keep happening, And my experience is going to be more of a view of crying out to God, saying, why, God, is this not changing? I thought you were looking out for me, and that you're doing things in my life to be able to comfort me and make things better, but not realizing what comfort really means. And so then comfort actually started becoming an idol for me. I wanted everything to be easy, to be smooth, nothing wrong. And when things in my mind are bad that are happening, feeling like I can't handle it, then I'm out of control. I don't have control. So then, not knowing what to do about it, and then my body just gets in knots, and my brain starts just feeling like it can't handle anything. And so I guess I feel like just within the last couple of weeks or a few weeks, kind of like a more major lesson, even though most truths I feel like I've known these things all along, all my whole life, but didn't really see the true meaning of it. I feel like sometimes I feel like I haven't learned the lesson yet, or I haven't really learned what the truth is. And so it's like I feel like I'm learning or getting exposed to these truths in layers until you finally maybe get to some final layers of exposing the full truth of something. And so for me, it felt like instead of constantly waiting or expecting my situations to change, to become more smooth, more easy, or somehow being able to get through things easier, because I'm trusting in God or believing in God, and when they felt like they're really not, I didn't understand it. It just felt so depressing, so awful, that I'm like, I don't understand how to do this, Lord. How am I supposed to make it through this if I keep experiencing this extreme pain and anxiety, and not know how to even make it through the day. And so it kind of started out like with, something's got to change to be able to understand how to, if I can't change my situations and God's allowing my situations possibly to stay the same,
Change.
then I have to change, yeah. And so, because I can ask God over and over to change my situations, and if He chooses not to, then what's the lesson? And so for me, I feel like then changing my perspective from the natural eye of like how I'm expecting my situations to change because I'm trusting in Him, then maybe my spiritual eye is what needs to change, in the sense of, if my situations aren't changing, then what possibly might be changing spiritually for me, or in the unnatural, realm of, in things that I can't see with my own eyes. Things might be happening in my heart and in my mind that are changing that I don't always necessarily notice, but it's for my good in the sense of like things might actually get worse in my situations, but it could possibly be because God's helping me learn how to trust Him even more, even in those storms, and even if the storms don't get any better but actually get worse because I'm trusting Him. So it's almost as if I think that because I'm trusting Him and He's looking out for me, that I think that my situation's going to somehow all of a sudden work out and come to a fruition of how I think it's supposed to be, get taken care of. Like if I'm helping somebody and we're supposed to get it done fast and it doesn't work out and actually gets worse and that other person gets really upset and I can't make it any better for them and it actually makes them even more upset, I can still have calm and peace and joy, because knowing that God still loves me, He's still the same, He never changes. The only thing that changes is my perspective on it. He still always loves me, and even that person that's upset or angry with me or whatever, I'm starting to grow in a way that changes my heart and my mind in that situation. So in the verse that helps kind of support this whole thing that I'm going through is, it's like literally everything becomes good for me. Literally everything, every situation, every thought, everything that I think might be bad could actually be good. Because Romans 8:28 says, "And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to His purpose." So I can literally trust God that even in situations that seem to be getting worse and worse and worse are still good, because He's doing things in heavenly places and things in my heart and my mind and for others that I might not even realize. So in those moments of extreme stress and anxiety, I can still have calm, because we're going to still go through pain in this life, but we don't have to have the stress and anxiety to put on top of it, because we can put that on top of it ourselves. And I'm not talking where people can have physically induced stress and anxiety because of like things going on in their brain that you might have to take medication for. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about things where we put on the stress and anxiety because we're reacting to a specific situation. And so, but we can still be perfectly calm and full of peace and joy, even in the most extreme situations of facing death and hardship and really stressful situations financially, whatever it is. We can still have peace and joy because we're trusting God that He's doing things in heavenly places for us and in our hearts and our minds in all of this. Yeah. And so I guess I'm just wanted to share that because I wanted to encourage others that might be going through pain every day of their lives, that there is hope in having peace and joy in every moment of pain, every moment. Because we get to choose to trust God that He's working all things out for our good, together for our good. Even painful things. Every day. We just might not be able to see it, but we can still trust and choose to believe that He is. And that's where the peace and joy comes in. Not because our painful situation gets any better or easier, but we get to choose to believe that God's working out things for our soul that is good. So, not our situations, for our soul.
Yeah, and as you just say that, I guess what comes to mind for me is just it's so comforting to me because I mean you described your situation, like your situation was your like your job situation, right? And stress, anxiety. For me personally, like I'll just give some backstory. Kind of why we're both doing this video is since we feel led to share. Sorry.
It's okay.
We feel led to share this because we basically kind of been going through some of the similar struggles, and I feel like God was just doing something for so long, and yeah, I just didn't know what He was doing, but I just knew He was doing something because I just know pain serves a purpose, and I guess what I was just saying was it's sometimes so comforting to see someone who's been through the same thing you are currently going through, and to learn the lesson that they learned. I mean, that's something that's just kind of just huge for me. So as you're talking, like if you're struggling, like I mean, I would just encourage you to reach out to someone who maybe like who is older than you, and a more experienced Christian than you, a more experienced person than you, have more life experience than you, because I mean, God uses us, each other, to, I mean, just Scripture tells us, Paul going through, hard situations, and he was sharing how, like, he was going through a hard situation, basically for your comfort. And basically what that means is, I'm going through stuff so that God can use me to minister to you, is basically what he was saying. And I don't know the specific verse, but, I mean, you can just look up, when Paul was just going through things, and he said stuff like, all the different types of situations that he was going through. And the other side of it is this: maybe you might be someone who needs help from someone else, and maybe you might be the person to actually help someone else, because sometimes you're going through something and you're always thinking that you're the person that needs help, but you might actually need to learn the lesson in order for you to be used to minister to that person. And that's what I feel that's happening right now. Because me and my mom, if you didn't know, that's mom's.
That's my son.
Because we didn't say that at first. We did not say that at first. He was like, who's this?
Too funny.
That's what I honestly feel is going on. I've just learned too many lessons to share with you guys in this one specific video. Just so many lessons. But if I were to sum it up all in one little kind of lesson is, God can really use your suffering for his purposes. And that verse that my mom just shared was all things that you work for the good of those who that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. Sometimes it might feel like when you're currently going through, I mean, we were just talking about it. Okay, yeah, when you're currently going through it, okay, yes, it's a struggle. It doesn't deny that you're still going to suffer. See, that's the thing sometimes. I feel like sometimes people think peace and joy is when you don't suffer at all. No, that's not peace and joy. Peace and joy is in the midst of your suffering, you have peace. So that's where the peace comes in. That's where the joy comes in, because you know that verse. You know God's working on things and you're just trusting him. And yes, that you got to grow in that. That doesn't happen all at once. It is a process. We're not there yet. No one's there yet where they can say they're perfectly at peace in every situation. So for me, what peace looks like is kind of the expression on my face. Wouldn't be like, like peace, like that. That's not peace for me. I feel like peace for me is just,
knowing the truth.
This is peace for me. This is what it looks like when I feel like I'm really at peace.
Yep.
This face. And so sometimes you might not see my suffering, and sometimes you might not see what I've just been going through, but I still have peace in that situation, and that's what can be encouraging to other people, is to say that you're going through this situation, but you still have peace in that situation. That's what makes people feel like, I can actually do this. Because when someone's going through something, and when they're isolated, that's when hopeless thoughts start to creep in, because you've never seen someone get through the thing that you're currently going through, or you maybe think that you're the only one going through this. But I tell you, me and my mom have been struggling. I don't want to put I don't want to put it so strong, but so bad. I don't want to put it I don't want to be like, but it's so bad.
Laughing, yeah.
So bad. But look, we're laughing about it. We still have peace. It's not like we're in despair. See, that's why Scripture sometimes says we're pressed down, but we're not, crushed. That's why Scripture says we're perplexed, but we're not driven to despair. That's why it says that. Because we can have peace in the midst of whatever we're going through. And sometimes you got to learn that.
Yeah.
That's not something that you just automatically, okay, if you're a baby Christian, if you just accepted Christ, if you're like 1 month, new to Christianity, of course you're going to struggle with that. I mean, that's just something you have to go in. Trust. I mean, that's how you grow trust, is going through trials and learning to trust. Trust is not something that you just gain all at once.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why we're here on earth, to learn to trust God, to learn to, do other things like that. And so, in my personal experience, as I've gone through so many trials and trials and suffering, I mean, it all comes under the umbrella of suffering. Whether, as she described, anxiety, that's suffering. I mean, uncomfortableness, that is suffering, right? Some of you guys really don't think uncomfortableness is suffering. Some of you guys think uncomfortableness is something that, is just not good for you. No, uncomfortableness is not always something that's not good for you. Sometimes you have to be uncomfortable. Because sometimes God is calling you to do something uncomfortable.
And there's different levels of uncomfortableness. What might be uncomfortable for somebody else might be no big deal to another person, So there's, obviously it's going to be different for each person what's actually uncomfortable for them.
Yeah.
Somebody might just say, oh, this is really uncomfortable, when it could be literally extreme pain, and they're just saying, this is uncomfortable.
Right.
When somebody else might be going something that you might think is totally trivial and not a big deal at all, but it's uncomfortable for them. So you can't really compare either in that respect. So whatever is uncomfortable for that person is still painful for them. So.
And it's just like, God uses uncomfortableness. And we were just talking just a little bit ago, these are just things that happen. We're not making this video just out of we planned it a month ago.
Just talked about it today.
We talked about it this night. Sometimes just God does things like that.
I don't like doing this.
You gotta do things like that.
I like acting.
God is doing something.
But I don't like being
That's
totally vulnerable sometimes.
That's the thing. But I was just gonna share, if I had not gone through this uncomfortable situation, how could I share my experience to teach you the lesson through this video? I just want to know. How could I have done that? If you have never gone through something painful in your life, how can you sympathize with someone who's going through something? I don't know. Right? How can you do that? And that's what I've learned. That's why Paul had to go through something in order for their comfort.
Well, yeah, because otherwise people get to say, "Oh, suck it up, Buttercup."
Exactly.
And so
just trust.
Yeah.
Yes, you just have to trust, but sometimes it's just do you even know what I'm going through?
Yeah.
Do you even know what I'm going through?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Do you even know? Because sometimes you can really feel like that. You might be talking to someone oh, all things work together for the good. I'm not downplaying that verse, guys. I am really not downplaying that verse. That verse is so good. Yeah. But the thing is, do you really even know? Have you ever even experienced this? Have you read that scripture to yourself when you were experiencing something that I'm experiencing? Because then you've really learned the lesson. Okay? It's not like we're just saying these verses to you. I know you've probably heard people say, and we know that all things work together for the good. Someone's probably said that to you before, and you're like, okay,
how does that help me?
Do you even know what I'm experiencing?
Yeah.
How much more powerful is it for someone else who is currently or has gone through something that you're experiencing to say that verse to you? How much more? Yeah. It's just totally different. That's the difference, in my opinion. You haven't learned the lesson if you haven't gone through it. You can't really encourage someone if you haven't gone through it. You can't really comfort someone if you haven't gone through it. So it's just when we get on here and talk to you guys, it's not like we're saying listen to us, but it's just you guys, I'm just almost so certain that God is doing something sort of powerful right now, because just in my personal experience, as I have gone through some things and shared my experiences, sometimes the most powerful things is when revelation comes to me right after I go through something. And for some of you, you're currently in the middle of going through something. And I would just encourage you, is it possible that God is going to use your pain for His purpose? That God is going to work things out for His purpose? That God is going to use you because of what you went through? Is it possible? Is it possible? And I'm not getting, guys, today, I'm not talking about I used to go through it. Man, I used to go through it months and years ago, but I'm good now. Now I've come to the experience where, I mean, you're always going to be suffering in some sort of way. Today, I'm not coming like, oh yeah, I went through 10 years. No, like today, you know. So when we talk about these things, it's like, you know, like.
Oh, yeah, we're not over or through it or anything. We're literally in the midst of it. Literally in the midst of it.
But you see, God is doing something. You see, like God is doing something, and you see that's just how God works. Sometimes you guys. I mean, sometimes it can be so uncomfortable. I mean, I know how it feels, and for some of you, I don't know what you're going through, but for some of you, you feel like you're so stressed out, so anxious, so hopeless that you feel like you've gotten to the point where you don't even know what to do. And I would just say, like, consider reaching out. You know, because if not us, that's gonna help you. It might be someone else. You know, because we haven't gone through, you know, all the painful experiences that have been endured in life. I haven't gone through any physical persecution. That's one thing I don't think I might not ever go through. But it's just like, you know, I really encourage you, and I only say that because, I mean, it's just how the body of Christ is supposed to operate. I go back to the verse, if you're not someone who's comforting, then maybe you're the comforted. And if you're not being the comforted, maybe you're the person who's being prepped to encourage someone. That's just one way you could look at your life struggles, you know? So, you know, I just thought, I mean, you know, I don't know what to say next, but I just feel like God is just doing something, and, yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if he's making changes, then you go with it.
Yeah.
You know, you keep seeking the truth, and I mean, I know it's you know, people say it all the time, but the truth will set you free because when you know what the truth is, then things become more clear, and then you're at ease because now you know what you can rely on, as opposed to, usually my problem is because of what I'm afraid of the unknown. And that's where my anxiety comes in, because I'm afraid. I'm a control freak. I want to know when everything's going to happen, how it's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and I want it exactly how I want it to happen. And so when none of those things are met, full of anxiety and stress, because I need to know what's going on. And if I don't, then, you know, I feel like I'm losing it.
Yeah.
And so, but if I get to choose to trust God, that I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that he's working all things out for my good, for my soul, then I don't have to worry anymore, not even for one more second. Things can still be painful, but I don't have to worry about it. It's still not easy to go through pain, but I don't have to have stress and anxiety about it. I just have to trust the Lord that he's going to help me through it, because he's with me. And so, you know, obviously that's still not easy to go through painful things, but at least we don't, you know, like I said, we don't have to compound it with the extra stress and anxiety and worry and all that. So,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we probably can wrap it up.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up. Closing thought for me was, does it end soon? Okay, I don't know. I was just gonna say, some of you probably have never experienced freedom from what you're going through simply because you've never shared it with someone before. And I was gonna share this experience. I remember when I was going through one of my hardest times, and the first time I experienced, it was almost like a glorious moment of like freedom, was when I talked to someone on the phone. I don't know, you probably know who I'm talking about, you know, Chris or whatever. And so when I first had shared my struggles with him, or sometimes it can be the person you're reaching out to, sometimes it just can be you sharing experience, telling someone. I just feel led to say that maybe some of you have never experienced freedom because you've never shared what you were going through with someone. That might be the reason. So for me personally, it's this like, I don't know, some of you guys might know my Facebook channel, reach out to me if you want to. You know, I'm available for that. You know what I mean? And it's just like no one's not going through something. You know, so it's almost like we're doing this almost like authentically, so you guys can know that we also have our own struggles, and maybe that you can feel maybe more openly to share, you know, your experiences, or, you know, just reach out to someone. And so, yeah, any closing thoughts for you, or?
No, that's pretty
Yeah.
much, that pretty much takes care of it.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you for
Yeah, thanks for
listening.
listening.